Were the Primarchs always tainted by chaos from the very beginning? In the sprawling mythos of Warhammer 40,000, few figures are as central and as enigmatic as the Primarchs, the 20 genetically engineered superhuman sons of the Emperor of Mankind. Crafted in the gene labs of TERRA, these titanic beings were intended to be the ultimate generals and leaders, each a perfect embodiment of a facet of the Emperor's grand design. However, the unfolding saga reveals a darker truth. The Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy through the malign machinations of chaos, and this begs the question: have the Primarchs always been tainted by chaos since the moment of their scattering, or did their corruption unfold over time as they confronted the galactic crucible? The tale begins at TERRA, where the Emperor's gene labs performed the near-miraculous feat of crafting the Primarchs. These laboratories were unparalleled centers of scientific and arcane knowledge, harnessing the secrets of genetics, psychic potential, and bioengineering to spawn the perfect warriors. The Emperor did not simply create warriors, he created legacies to spearhead his great crusade and unify humanity. Yet it is crucial to understand that the Emperor's power, while vast, was not omnipotent. His gene crafting techniques and psychic mastery were unparalleled but vulnerable to the predations of the warp and the insidious influence of chaos. The warp is not merely a dimension of psychic energy, but also a realm of raw emotion, desire, and corruption. MOLECH, situated near a warp gate of immense instability, was not a random choice for the scattering of the Primarchs. It was a place where the influence of the ruinous powers was strongest, a crucible designed for corruption. The Emperor used techniques to create the Primarchs given to him by the very chaos gods that corrupted the Primarchs later on during the Great Crusade. The warp gate of MOLECH allowed the Emperor to convene with the chaos gods. At this stage, they were amused by the Emperor's plea and gave him knowledge to create his superhuman sons. This already begs the question: were the Primarchs doomed from the very beginning? The scattering of the Primarchs was a cataclysmic event orchestrated by the very forces the Emperor sought to abolish. Chaos, sensing the threat of the Emperor's sons posed to its dominion, tore through the warp gate at MOLECH, hurling each Primarch across the galaxy and into radically different environments. This separation, physically and spiritually, severed each Primarch from their origins and left them vulnerable to the unique pressures of their unique worlds. The essential question is whether this scattering acted as an inherent taint, a permanent corruption woven into the fabric of their being from birth, or rather as a catalyst that exposed latent weaknesses. The evidence leans towards the latter. The Emperor's gene labs created pure vessels, but the environments to which each Primarch was cast introduced elements of chaos corruption. Once scattered, the Primarchs landed on a variety of worlds. Some encountered brutal, war-torn societies steeped in superstition and primitive belief systems. Others found themselves in technologically advanced but morally ambiguous civilizations. Their differing experiences profoundly shaped their psyches and loyalties. For example, Horus, the favored son, grew under the Emperor's direct tutelage and initially embodied the idea of unity and leadership. His eventual fall in the Horus heresy was not predestined, but emerged through a combination of personal ambition, manipulation by the Chaos Gods, and the trauma inflicted by the wider galactic conflict. Conversely, Primarchs like Magnus the Red, who delved too deeply into the warp to save their brotherly kin, unwittingly opened the door to demonic corruption. Meanwhile, others such as Roboute Guilliman remained steadfast against the tides of chaos, embodying the hope of eventual redemption and unity. This diversity of paths points to a pivotal concept. The Primarchs themselves were not irrevocably tainted from the instant of their birthing or scattering. Instead, their exposure to chaos, fused with their unique environments, created differing levels of susceptibility or resistance. Chaos in the Warhammer 40k universe often acts as a mirror, exposing the deepest flaws, desires, and vulnerabilities of individuals. The Primarchs, despite their superior genetics and psychic potential, were not immune to this truth. The corruption of chaos often reflected individual ambition or trauma, rather than an innate taint from the moment of their scattering. The Emperor within the lore sought to create perfect beings, and perhaps even eradicate the influence of chaos from the galaxy entirely. However, his own ambitions were not without error. The scattering destroyed his grand design in part, but more importantly, it revealed an inherent vulnerability to the warp and chaos gods that no human manipulation could fully control. Some scholars argue that the Emperor's creation of the Primarchs without considering the subtle and insidious influence of chaos was a fatal flaw. The seed of corruption did not lie in the Emperor's gene lab, but in the metaphysical battlefield of the warp and the inherent fragility of beings that stood between the material universe and warp energies. Despite this, the Primarch's legacy is not simply one of corruption. Their stories are tragic elegies to potential and loss. Whether corrupted or loyalist, each Primarch encapsulates the eternal struggle between order and chaos, discipline and passion, destiny and free will. Chaos, while a corrupting force, also functioned as a crucible that tested the Primarch's mettle. The scattered nature of their births ensured no single fate. Some embraced the dark gifts of the warp, others resisted and fought back, while many stood perpetually in tragic ambivalence. In considering the question, have the Primarchs always been tainted by chaos since they were scattered across the galaxy from birth? The answer is nuanced. The taint was not a congenital affliction seeded from TERRA's gene lab, it was an existential hazard born from the chaotic circumstances of their scattering. This event exposes the Primarchs to the deepest currents of warp corruption, where latent desires and flaws could be exploited or overcome. The saga of the Primarchs above all is a story of cosmic complexity. Far from simple vessels of predestined ruin or glory, they are living, evolving embodiments of humanity's grandest hopes and darkest fears. While the Emperor's gene labs crafted their bodies and psyches, their chaotic scattering from birth introduced an unpredictable variable that forever entwined them with the ruinous powers. Rather than being inherently tainted from their birth, the Primarchs were born into a universe where chaos is an omnipresent force, one that awaits patiently in the shadows to claim those vulnerable to its whispers. This eternal struggle between the Emperor's vision for unity and the insidious encroachment of chaos remains at the heart of Warhammer 40,000's dark and enthralling saga. This archive has now been fully decoded. Continue your journey into the librarian with the video displayed on screen. The vast wealth of the archives continues to reveal new knowledge of the dark history of the 40k verse. In the grim dark of the far future, there is only war.